A new pope has been elected in the Vatican, and he has taken the name of Leo XIV. His name before that was Robert Prevost. We're going to tell you who he is, at least from what we can tell right now, here in the Catholic Wire.
You are listening to the Catholic Wire.
Hello my friends, and welcome back to the Catholic Wire. It's been a while since we have made any videos, but the events in the world obviously prompt us to address these topics. In the Vatican there has been elections. Bergoglio passed away, and now they have elected Robert Prevost to be the new Pope of their institution. He has taken the name of Leo XIV, and people are asking, is he going to be traditional? Is he going to go back to the faith? Is he going to uphold the sacraments? Is he going to fight against the LGBT agenda and the transgender agenda, or is he going to yield to the world and continue the line of progressivism, transgressivism, we should really call it, and the communism that Francis followed? It's important not to let ourselves be deceived. Let's see who this person is from the facts that we have of his life till this point. Many of them are hidden because obviously these people are not on the radar most of the time, but let's see what we can find right now. The first thing that we do need to mention is super important, I think, and is the fact that from the moment that he becomes the head of the Vatican II institution, from that moment, he has to accept the documents of Vatican II. And so when you accept the documents of Vatican II, I'm sorry, those documents are not Catholic. A lot of it is harmless. Yes, a lot of it is the repetition of Catholic doctrine, but there is in them outright heresy. And so it is impossible that someone accepts those documents without at the same time relinquishing the faith. What am I talking about especially? You know, Vatican II teaches a heresy, a very pernicious heresy, which is that the Catholic Church is not necessary for salvation, that you can find salvation directly in other religions, in false religions, I must say, and that God works in all of them somehow. This is taught explicitly in the document of Vatican II called Nostra Aetate, where it is said that in Buddhism you find perfect liberation, that in Hinduism you find illumination of the divine, that in the Muslim religion they worship the true God, although they don't recognize Jesus Christ as God. It's right there in the document. With this many other things, it is a consistent teaching in the Vatican II Church, in the Vatican II faith, that you don't need the Catholic faith to save your soul, that you don't need the Catholic Church to save your soul. And that is a radical departure. Not only that, it is absolutely contrary to what the Catholic Church has always taught. Having said that, then, from the moment that he accepts Vatican II and teaches it, this person, I must say, is not in the Catholic faith, does not belong to the Catholic Church. Another matter to discuss would have to be his orders. We know that in 1968, the rite of orders, of episcopal orders, was changed, of episcopal consecration, and that means that people that receive orders from bishops consecrated after that time probably don't have valid orders. They're not real priests, they're not real bishops. And so we might actually be here in the case of a person that might actually just be a layman. I will leave that discussion for later. I'm not so interested in that. I'm more interested in his perspectives when it comes to faith, morals, religion. So without further ado, let's look at the facts. We're going to try to cover here some of the things that are most significant when it comes to him. One of the main factors for him were the fact of the scandals, the sexual scandals that have happened during his tenure as bishops. We have, let me move here the screen a little bit. What you're seeing in screen is a report that came out in a news station called Cuarto Poder, and this report covers the case of sexual abuse, alleged sexual abuse, that happened with 3 ladies in the diocese that was at the time under the watch of Prevost. And these ladies complained to him personally. At least one of them went to speak with him personally, and we'll see what happened with that. So this is the major case. If you research Prevost, you're going to find that this case has a lot of resonance, because these ladies didn't give up. Especially the lady that you see there in the screen, she did not give up. She continued asking for justice. However, what I have here in the screen is the story of Prevost and the first cases that he had, where he had protected priests, quote-unquote priests, because I have to say these men were not really ordained. As I said, their orders are not valid. Novus Ordo priests that committed sexual abuse. You can find this document in the address that is you see up here. It's infovaticana.com, and then you see the rest of the URL over there. So there were several cases of cover-up. First is the case of James Ray, who was accused of sexual abuse of minors, and he was authorized by the then priest Robert Prevost, who was the superior provincial of the Order of St. Augustine, to live in the house of St. John's Stone in Hyde Park, Chicago, which is less than 100 meters away from the Catholic primary school of St. Thomas the Apostle. In 1990, Ray was accused of abusing of a child during his tenure in St. Peter Damian from 1984 to 1989. He was removed from there, and then Prevost puts him in this house very close to the primary school of St. Thomas the Apostle. Another case of cover-up, the case of Richard J. McGrath from the same order that Prevost belongs to, the Order of St. Augustine. He was the president of a Catholic school, a middle school in New Lenox, Illinois, in 2013. He worked with him in the same house with Prevost. They lived in the same community. He was found to have horrible things, children, pictures in his phone, and he was accused of abusing children between the ages of 13 and 15 years old. Now he is retired of the public ministry and retired to the same house of St. John's Stone, which, again, 100 meters away from a primary school. Now, they apologized to the school, people complained, they removed him from there. What is interesting about this, even though Prevost is supposedly fighting very strongly against abuse and all that stuff, this is video of Prevost that you see here. Even though you see that, or they say that, these men were removed and then allowed to disappear. So in the case of McGrath, December 2018, Associated Press informed that his whereabouts were unknown and that he basically has disappeared now. I believe that I don't know if it's the diocese, let's see here. It was either the diocese or the order that settled the cases, the complaints, by paying money. I think it was $2 million or something like that. I'll leave that for someone else to research. It's somewhere here, but right now I just want to give you these facts that there is 2 cases of cover-ups. Richard J. McGrath under his watch, then James Ray also under his watch. Now, after that comes the main case that we are discussing here. Before I go into that, really quickly, there is an actual complaint by an organization. This organization is it's called SNAP, Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests. I want to make here the distinction. We're talking about Novus Ordo priests, priests of the Vatican II Church. That's what we're talking about. So this organization actually has a complaint on these priests that were allowed to run free, to go free. And they mention here the case of Richard McGrath and the abuses that happened with him. and the fact that his behavior was allowed to continue and that he was allowed to run free and he was allowed basically to leave without facing any consequences. Now, notice this part over here. It says the wrongdoers include Cardinal Blaise Cupic, Bishop Ronald Hicks, Bishop David Malloy, Cardinal Robert Prevost, because he didn't do anything about it. In this news story that you're seeing here on video, where one of the victims of the main scandal is complaining, one of the things that she mentions is that Robert Prevost later on would be appointed by Francis to be the head of the dicastery of bishops, or the head of the person overseeing the selection of all the bishops. So he had the power to remove many of these abusers, and he didn't. He let them go free. Okay, now we need to go into the main scandal. The main scandal is a horrible thing, obviously, as they all are. And this is a case where three ladies, Ana Maria, who is the one that you see there in the video, speaking, well, this is one of the ladies. Ana Maria is not anonymous. Ana Maria and the other two ladies were abused, allegedly, by a priest called Eleuterio Vasquez Gonzalez. Now, what happens here? Ana Maria becomes the main spokeswoman, you could say, of all of them, because she is the one that is more outspoken. She's the one that realizes that several of them have been injured. So she's the one that goes and tells, at that time, Prevost, that this has happened. Prevost tells her, go and file a complaint with the police, because the Catholic Church cannot research these things. We cannot research it anymore. Now, for those of you who live in America, that seems very reasonable. If you live in any country below America, like Mexico and any other country in South America, you know very well, going to the police with this kind of stuff is wasted time. The police will not do anything about it. You're just going to waste your time. I've done things like that. It's a total waste of time. So Prevost telling them that really was just sending them away. No investigation is opened. They claim that there was an investigation, but no papers have ever been shown. Nothing has been shown. People have asked for that investigation. It was never shown. So I'm not going to give you the whole story. You can research it. You can see it here in this website. They actually give you a full report, infovaticana.com. It's in Spanish, but you can translate it using Google. The point is that three ladies complain, years pass, nothing happens. Later on, Prevost would be made as we said before, he would be made the bishop of, not the bishop, the head of the organism in the Vatican that is in charge of electing bishops. And from this moment on, obviously the complaint was brushed away. As the ladies say in this video, in this report, which you will find in americatv.com, here's the URL, you can see it. It was a report made by the news outlet called Cuarto Poder. It's also in Spanish. As they say there, after a while they realized nothing happened. They went to complain, and when they go and complain, they tell them, they basically make another report from the beginning, and they say to them, we read here, they say to them, no report has been filed. Nothing has been happening. Like this is, now we're starting. Before that, there's nothing that had been done. She says there was never a moment where anyone went to do a research with them. No one interviewed them from the church. They were totally just left abandoned. So the person that saw them, I think it was a year after, says, he told us that these questions were to formulate the facts, and that he thought it was odd that in a whole year there had been no research. The questions were about what had happened. I understood, this is the lady that made the accusation, I understood that the denunciation had been made before the Bishop Prevost had been good for nothing. At that moment, she says, this new person that was talking to them, the researcher, showed them a paper that they had written by the order of Prevost, and he said, this paper is good for nothing. The only thing that works for anything is what we did today. With this, she said to him, well, then I understand that there is a lot of corruption in the church. And he says, well, I'm new in the case. I have no idea what has happened before. They were never given the aid of a canonist. They were never told that they could receive the aid of a canonist. Now, so far you might say, well, maybe there's something we don't know. Maybe they did start an investigation. Something happened. Prevost is sent to Rome, and he is now the head of this organism of the bishops. And then they are sought by a canonist, a man. Let's see here, if we can find him. So, in 2024, this is a year ago, the victims requested the canonist from Peru, Monsignor Ricardo Coronado Arrascue, to act as their lawyer before the diocese. This man, a good man it seems, he gathered all the signed declarations, he gathered the witness, he went and requested for an audience. He requested the papers of the previous investigation that they claimed that there was an investigation. I'm skipping a lot of the story here. Long story short, this lawyer starts having an argument, a discussion with the diocese, requesting for justice, asking for justice, requesting the papers, trying to get an actual process going. He says, where is this investigation? I cannot find it. What happens later on is this man is cancelled. So what happens with him is, here we read. Saturday, 24 August, he reads a communique from the Episcopal Conference informing that this man, Coronado, who was the lawyer of the ladies, cannot exercise anymore like a canonist in Peru. He cannot defend the causes of any victims that he is currently defending, including the 3 victims of the sexual abuse. In 29 of August, he is notified through his lawyer that he is no longer incardinated in his diocese, and he is invited, notice this part here, he is invited to abandon the clerical state, meaning in other words, he is defraud almost. So you can see here that there was a lot of power working against these victims and their lawyer, and protecting the sexual abuse, the priests that were guilty of sexual abuse. It's hard, I think it's very hard to not see the link between Prevost and these things happening, especially as he had a history of several people that he protected. If you want to see it again in infovaticana.com, there is a letter from the 3 victims where they accuse the cardinal of wrongdoing, of they handling this in a very bad way. Okay, so as far as I have seen so far, this is one of the main things that are being used against him. I think they are very concerning accusations. However, that's not all. Let's see at what else you can find about Robert Prevost. Regarding COVID, I don't know what you think about COVID. I don't want to know. You know that people have different opinions. But let's say that COVID was a terrible disease that was killing a lot of people. Let's say the worst case scenario, right? That this was something that was very dangerous. People needed to take measures. The worst thing you could do, if that was the case, the worst thing you could do was to close down the churches. If you have faith, the last thing you want to do is stop the worship of God. On the contrary, people need to pray more. People need to go to confession. People need to go receive extreme unction. People need to receive the Blessed Sacrament, right? If you have faith, that's what you would think. Not close down the churches. Not suspend the religious cult. But we see that Prevost fell for the whole program, followed, pushed, or was part of the whole program of COVID. He reposted this tweet from Esther Palma that says, "For all the faithful Catholics from Spain, humble advice, don't go to Sunday Mass. Don't go to the Eucharist from Sunday. Forgo, abandon all religious practices in the hands of God during 15 days. It's the famous 2 weeks to lower the spread, right? Let me see if we can make this bigger here. All the faithful Christian of the Diocese of Madrid are dispensed from the assistance to the Sunday celebration." So Prevost reposted this in his diocese. He also was big on that, in trying to say, we have to fight against contagion, don't come to Mass, instead go and see the Mass through the live stream and all that kind of stuff. So from there, that's his policy when it comes to COVID. Now, that to me is not a policy that is fitting with a priest. Not to close the worship and to tell people like don't come to Mass at all. Okay, when it comes to ecumenism, I was wondering if he would have a stance if we were going to see Pachamamas and other things like that. He also reposted the first video of Francis, which is like the most monstrous ecumenical video you could find, where you see, the baby Jesus, Buddha, the Rosary, the menorah, all put together in the same boat, in the same picture, as if they were the same thing. He reposted this video. Obviously, he's following the same line of ecumenism that Francis is. Quick parenthesis here, before we go into more evidence of who he is. Prevost had already these scandals, the two ones in America, from the Augustinian order, and the case of the 3 victims of sexual abuse in Peru. He was already known for that. There was already news reports about that. In spite of that, Francis raises him up in the levels. He makes him a cardinal, he makes him a bishop first, then makes him a cardinal, and then puts him at the head of the congregation that chooses the bishops around the world. And that was a place where he would become papable. He would become a subject to be elected to the papacy. One has to see that there was a very clear intent of Francis to raise him up to a place where he could be elected a pope. So this was obviously part of the plan from the beginning. It's not like they're trying to say in the outlets, he was an unnamed person, someone that no one saw coming. In spite of many obstacles, many reasons not to put him in front of a most important job, Francis raised him up to a place where he could become pope. So of course, this was a policy. Of course, there was something behind it. Of course, there was a plan. The next question that I would have is, what is his stance on the LGBT agenda, all that stuff? People are putting comments, that he made criticizing the transgender ideology. But let's see something interesting here. In 2020, he reposts something from Ivan y Punto. That means that this, when you repost someone, you're giving them a platform. Now, who is Ivan y Punto? Well, you will need to see his profile and you'll know everything you need to know about him. This is a profile. It's a guy blasphemously dressed like a nun with an LGBT flag. I am lesbian, I am gay, I'm bisexual, I'm trans, I'm intersexual, I'm queer. Lima la loca, Lima la bella. So this is totally, it's an LGBT person, right? An LGBT activist, which is different, rather. And here he has, also all kinds of tweets that show his policy and his thought. Prevost reposts this guy in his tweet, in his own profile. Next to Bishop Burbridge, you have Ivan y Punto. They're reposted by Prevost. So that tells me that his criticism of the LGBT agenda and all that stuff is probably as much to be believed as that of Francis. So this is a very short video to show us who this man is. Obviously, he's following the line of Francis. Obviously, he's in the line of Maradiaga and Fernandez and all of Francis's friends who lived there in South America, and we're all promoting communism, communist ideas, abuse, protecting the priests that committed sexual abuse and homosexual priests. Of course, this is part of the whole thing. Can we put that all out right now? Can we bring that all that information to the public? It will be hard, but at least what I'm showing you today is all facts. These are all things you can go and still see for yourself if they have not been deleted, and this shows you what kind of person this man is. I don't think we can expect much from Leo, quote unquote, the 14th. It is a follower of Francis. He is a friend of Francis, favored by Francis. He's going to bring the same kind of destruction to the Catholic Church that Francis brought. For ourselves as Catholics, we need to defend our faith, defend our morals, defend the Catholic Mass. Don't fall for the trap of double discourse. We must not rest until every Catholic in the world knows that these people are impostors, that they are not true popes, they are not true Catholics, and they should be deposed. They should be sent out of there, and we should have a moment where all Catholics come in agreement to restore the Catholic Church. This is Father Carlos Cepeda for the Catholic Wire. God bless you.